and vitamin D rather. And vitamin D seems to be the biggest factor. That people, one of the things Dr. Rhonda Patrick talked about on the podcast too, is that more than 80% of the people in the ICU are deficient in vitamin D.
Over 80% of COVID ICU patients were vitamin D deficient. Joe Rogan saw the data and asked the question no one else did. Why aren't we talking about this? While the world shut down, Rogan looked beyond masks and medicine. He turned to something simpler, a nutrient your body makes from sunlight. Not a pill, not a patent, just biology. This is why Joe Rogan believes everyone should take vitamin D, and why he might be right. Before the age of skyscrapers and schedules, there was rhythm, primal, perfect, solar. The human body, like all life on Earth, was once aligned with the cycles of light and dark. The rising sun wasn't just a poetic symbol, it was a biological event. When a photon of UVB light penetrates your skin, it doesn't just warm it, it starts a chain reaction. Deep within the epidermis, a cholesterol-based molecule called 7-dehydrocholesterol gets struck. The bond breaks. Pre-vitamin D3 is formed, which then transforms into vitamin D3 with time and body heat. It's like a forgotten conversation between you and the sun. One that evolution wrote into your skin. Joe Rogan gets this. That's why vitamin D isn't just another capsule on his supplement shelf. It's part of a larger principle, reconnecting with what the body was designed to do, and questioning what modern life tries to overwrite. He doesn't trust trends. He trusts evidence. And the evidence is staggering. Vitamin D isn't like other vitamins. Technically, it's not even a vitamin. It's a prohormone, influencing over 2,000 genes, touching systems as diverse as the immune response, bone mineralization, insulin sensitivity, neurotransmitter function, and cell replication. In short, it's a master regulator. Low vitamin D has been linked to increased risk of respiratory infections, greater severity in COVID-19 cases, autoimmune conditions like multiple sclerosis and type 1 diabetes, higher rates of depression, anxiety, and seasonal affective disorder, reduced testosterone levels in men, increased risk of preeclampsia during pregnancy, and poor muscle recovery and chronic fatigue. This isn't fringe science. It's in peer-reviewed journals, NIH publications, and medical school textbooks. Yet you'd hardly hear a whisper about it on the evening news. Rogan's frustration? It comes from watching people suffer from entirely preventable problems, while the mainstream keeps pretending vitamin D is optional. Rewind to March 2020. The world goes still. Borders close. Supermarkets run out of toilet paper. And health authorities tell people to stay indoors. What got missed in that guidance? The sunlight. In 2021, a meta-analysis published in the journal Nutrients examined over 30 studies and concluded that individuals with adequate vitamin D levels had a 64% lower risk of severe COVID-19 outcomes. Other studies showed supplementation reduced ICU admissions, shortened recovery time, and even reduced mortality. In Indonesia, a study of over 700 COVID-19 patients found that 98.9% of those who died were vitamin D deficient. But this story never made headlines. Joe Rogan, in the middle of a public storm about vaccines and misinformation, kept asking the question, why isn't anyone talking about vitamin D?
Another thing that's really important is vitamin D. They are finding, and this is what you were talking about with African Americans having a particular problem with COVID. African Americans have a particular problem with vitamin D as well.
Maybe because you can't patent the sun. Here's a truth most people don't think about. Skin color is vitamin D strategy. Melanin, the pigment that gives skin its darkness, acts as a natural sunscreen. In equatorial regions where UV radiation is intense, dark skin protects against cellular damage. But in northern latitudes, where sunlight is weaker, this melanin barrier becomes a disadvantage. Over millennia, human populations evolved lighter skin to absorb more UVB rays and maintain vitamin D production. That's why genetic studies show that even Europeans were dark-skinned until around 8,000 years ago. when diet and geography pushed evolution in a new direction. But modern life has disrupted this adaptation. A dark-skinned person living in Oslo may produce 25 times less vitamin D than a light-skinned local, all because their biology is tuned to a different sun. Now add sunscreen, office life, pollution, clothing, indoor work weeks, night shifts. It's not a surprise that vitamin D deficiency affects over 1 billion people globally. The surprise is that we still treat it like it doesn't matter. Tehran, a city of over 8 million. Plenty of sun. But among Iranian women, vitamin D deficiency is near epidemic, with over 75% showing insufficient levels. The reasons? Cultural clothing, indoor lifestyles, and high urban pollution that filters out UVB rays. Despite the geographic advantage, biology gets blocked by modernity. And it's not unique to Iran. The same patterns repeat in Cairo, Jakarta, Riyadh. You could be standing under the noonday sun and still be functionally deprived of it. Joe Rogan's point? Geography doesn't guarantee health. Awareness does. Rogan's routine is no nonsense. Cold plunges, jujitsu, elk meat, infrared saunas, and yes, daily vitamin D. He takes 5,000 IU per day, sometimes more during winter months. His logic? Match modern stress with ancestral wisdom. That dose might seem high, but studies show that doses up to 10,000 IU per day are safe for most adults. In fact, some cancer patients under medical care receive 40,000 international units daily as part of immunotherapy protocols. What's more important is co-supplementation. Rogan often pairs his D3 with vitamin K2, which helps direct calcium to the bones and away from the arteries, minimizing the risk of kidney stones or calcification. This isn't reckless biohacking. It's a calculated balance. Public health is cautious, sometimes too cautious. The current recommended daily allowance, RDA, for vitamin D in the US is 600 to 800 IU per day, barely enough to prevent rickets, let alone optimize immune function. Many doctors are hesitant to recommend higher doses, fearing toxicity. But real-world data shows that vitamin D toxicity is extremely rare and almost always involves sustained intake over 40,000 IU per day without K2 or magnesium. Meanwhile, deficiency is rampant, even in countries like the US, where food is fortified and supplements are accessible. Rogan argues that the system isn't failing out of ignorance. It's failing out of inertia. It's easier to treat disease than to restructure health. In 2022, a Boston startup ran an experiment. 2 groups of employees. One got 15 minutes of sunlight exposure every day at noon. The other didn't. After 3 months, the sunlight group showed measurable improvements in mood, sleep, and productivity, all tracked via wearable biometrics. They didn't change their diet, didn't change workload, just light. That's the missing variable. The thing Rogan keeps yelling about while the rest of us scroll past. We treat fatigue with caffeine, depression with pills, weak immunity with shots. But maybe the real diagnosis is something else. We've lost alignment. Our bodies evolved to sync with the sun, from the way we sleep to how we fight viruses. Vitamin D isn't a hack. It's a reminder, a signal, a biological timestamp that says, you're still part of the earth. Rogan doesn't think vitamin D is a miracle, but he does think it's a message, one we've ignored long enough. Joe Rogan isn't trying to sell you anything. He's just asking you to pay attention to your skin, your biology, your ancestors. Before you reach for a cure, ask if you've honored the design, the one built under open skies, the one that doesn't need a prescription, just a little light. Vitamin D isn't just a supplement. It's the most ancient conversation your body knows how to have. So take your D, or take a walk. But don't keep pretending the dark is normal.